guys, it's Nicole, and this is my first process video in a very long time, so I hope you enjoy. The very first picture I'm going to show you is what I pulled out to use to make this layout. I always try to pull out some products first, and then I can dig into my stash later if I'm not satisfied with what I got. So I knew I wanted kind of a muted background because I was going to be doing some stamping and paint splattering, and I wanted that to be able to show up. So I'm using this Amy Tan cut and paste paper with these gray hearts on it, and I cut it down to leave about a half of an inch around each edge so that I could put that Lily Bee Designs kind of turquoisey mint green chevron paper that looks sort of distressed in the background. And for basically every layer that I use on this layout, I'm using a distressing tool to really rough up the edges. That's what you see me doing here. And there will be a moment where I go off camera after I adhere that heart paper on top of the Lily Bee Designs paper, and that's because my sewing machine is to the left of me on a different table, and it's just easy for me to turn my chair around and face that table and sew instead of bringing the sewing machine to my desk. So that's where I'm at right now when you don't see me off camera, but I do try to hold it up to the camera and show you that I did some sewing with aqua thread. And I have just a Janome Sew Mini machine. I got mine on Black Friday a few years ago for I think like 25 bucks free shipping, but typically they run about $50 and they work really well. So if you don't have one of those and you're looking for a sewing machine simply for scrapbooking, this would be a good one. So there you see my sewing around the edges, and now I'm using my fingers just to sort of rough up the edges a little bit and add some dimension. And I'm putting a little bit of washi tape here on the back to hold the thread in place. That's what I typically do to make sure that it doesn't come undone. Now I'm showing you 4x6 photos holding two different photos of Reagan on each one, and these are from her winter program this year. This is when she was waiting to go on stage, and she had a mix of emotion. She was happy, scared, silly, and so I wanted to capture that in this layout, and I'm cutting each photo to a 3x3 cube. The background color of the chair that she was sitting in is just a very pukey blue color, so I did make the pictures monochromatic by turning them to grayscale in my editing software, photo editing software. And now I'm just sort of trying to plan the layers that are going to go under these photos. I haven't committed to any type of layout yet. I know that I want my title to be on that bottom to the left of the heart, and I want to incorporate that heart in my title. So I'm taking this 6x6 paper pad that's from the flea market. It was from my design team package from Whimsidoodle, I think back in either September or October. And I'm just taking some of the scraps to do some layering underneath these photos, and this is a great way to use some of your scraps. I find that if I'm incorporating smaller photos, like 3x3 photos or 4x4, I can then pull out my 6x6 pads instead of cutting into 12x12 papers, and it just adds a little pop of color. Those dies that you see that I'm sorting through right now are from the DIY collection from Crate Paper. I knew I wanted a little bit of gold on this layout, and I knew that those dies had some gold in some of the die cuts, so I pull those out. And then I also have that chipboard 12x12 sheet, and that is from the On Trend collection. And this little container you see here with different tags and stuff in it, I'll eventually do an organizational video related to that, but that holds all kinds of different leftover tags that I have from either Studio Calico kits or Scraptastic kits, and then some of my tags that I also got from the various American Crafts paper collections. And so I like to just have that on hand, that little sorter, to use up some scraps or pull it out and use it on layout. So that's what I'm doing here. I was looking for some Ormolu ones that I knew had the same color combination as these. And now that I know the general layout of my scrapbook page, I'm deciding where I want to put some of these Kaiser Craft doilies that are black, and they are from the Sun Showers collection. No, excuse me, they are from the Timeless collection. So I'm rubbing those on using my basic gray rub-on tool. I've really been back into using my rub-ons lately, which is why I'm going for a lighter background, because I really want them to show up. And I don't just use these Kaiser Craft ones here. You'll see later I pull out some very old school Studio Calico butterflies that kind of match that background paper. That's the border. That's kind of that turquoise green color. So I cut that doily in half, and for whatever reason, I always have difficulty with Kaiser Craft rub-ons. They seem to not go down very easily, but I knew in that center doily that I was going to be covering it up with the picture, so I wasn't too concerned with the way it was turning out. And now I'm going to be adding some of the butterflies coming from above that bottom left-hand photo of Reagan, and what that's on that black and white piece of acetate that you see is a photo overlay from one of the crepe paper collections. So I knew I wanted the butterfly kind of peeking out from underneath that since it's see-through. And these butterflies are going down really easily using my Basic Gray tool. I don't know if they sell that tool anymore or not. It's probably about 6 or 7 years old, but I do believe Whimsidoodle carries it if you're in the local St. Pete, Tampa area in Florida. I don't know where you could get it online. So anyways, I'm just adding some of those, and I haven't committed to adhering anything down yet because I know that I want to do some paint splatters. And the first color that I'm using is this hot pink SEI tumble dry ink, and I wasn't liking the small splotches that it was making using just the sprayer or the mister. So you'll see me get a paintbrush and I add some larger globs to the background of my layout. There you go. That's a little bit more of what I was looking for. Then the next color I use is my Mr. Huey Passport color, and that's actually, I believe it's a navy color, but I use it for black as well, because when you're splattering it, you can barely tell. And then to add a little bit of gold, I used Heidi Swapp Color Shine in gold. So I'm just making sure that that's dried using my heat tool. I'm not sure where I went right now. Where am I? Oh, I'm choosing a stamp. I used 2 stamp sets on this layout, and they're both from Studio Calico kits. This first one is just a little row of triangles or arrows, and I want those pointing to my title. That's going to be to the left of the heart. So even though that entire stamp is probably 5 inches long, I'm only stamping or inking just a different variety of lengths, like maybe 1 inch, then 2 inches, and I'm showing it to you there. I don't like that heart's just, drawn onto the paper. I want it to really incorporate it as an embellishment, so you'll see I layer a lot of stuff on top of it, including stamping and splattering and doodling on it, and you'll see that along the way of this layout. So now I am sort of taking all the embellishments and different scraps of paper, figuring out where I want to lay them down underneath the photos, and then using my distress tool to distress them. I was getting all kinds of little paper crumbs on my project, so you'll see me a few times put my layout aside to do the distressing, and then at some point in the video I will probably start doing the distressing over my garbage can, so you might not see me doing it. Those stickers are from the cut and paste collection, and I chose this very bright pink leaf, but I didn't like how it blended in, so I used this Recollections marker that writes on slick surfaces. It's a photo marker, or I'm sorry, yeah, to write on photographs, and I just edged the outline of the leaf, and a lot of that's going to be covered up anyways, but it just needed a little pop of color. I'm adding some dimensional adhesive on top of underneath the photo to make it sort of pop. And now I'm putting that overlay down on the bottom left-hand side and distressing the little ticket that I'm going to add as one of the layers to that cluster of photos. And I'm never fully done with one cluster. You'll see me sort of build a base of each cluster, and then I take a look at my work. I try to figure out what it's missing. If there's a visual triangle of interest, if there's not, then you'll see me add stuff. Right now I'm adding an ormolu cut apart that has the word date on it, and I'm just stamping the date using VersaFine ink. And I'm going to have that, since it's an arrow pointing to the photo of Reagan making the face right after I distress it. So that'll go right there, and I'm using a stapler to staple it on because I plan on putting that picture on dimensional adhesive. So now I just think I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next, and I start working on the middle cluster of photos. And I cut this little square of paper 3.5 by 3.5, but it was touching some of the other photos, and I didn't like that, so you'll see me trim it down, and also trim down my picture a little later as well, and the pink mat that I put on my photo. So there I am cutting it down. And that little flag with the camera on it that I just took away, I try to use it several times on this layout, but just can't get it to work, so I don't think it ended up making it on this layout. So again, I'm adding the layer that's going to be the border around the photo, which is this pink piece of paper. I'm putting it down, and this is where I decided just cut down my photo a little bit. It doesn't affect the integrity of the photo because it's just cutting some of the dead space around the image, but just cutting that little bit of dead space helped out a little bit in making the picture fit better onto the layout. And I like that the center one is her pointing. She was pointing at the stage. And that little puffy heart that I added to that date ormolu die cut is from an old Studio Calico kit. So I'm really making good use of some of the leftovers of previous kits that I've had. And then I add some of these little flowers from the on-trend chipboard 12 by 12 piece. And as you can see, you know, I was working on the middle one, then I added a little puffy heart to the bottom left-hand photo, and then I added those flowers to the bottom, or the top left-hand photo. So I'm constantly moving around and working on different parts of the layout till they're aesthetically pleasing to me. In looking at the pictures now, I kind of wish the one on the right-hand side that I'm working on, where Reagan's looking towards the outside of the layout, I wish I would have put that on the left side so that she was looking towards something and not, you know, away. But those are just one of those things that as you're reviewing your work that you're criticizing, but, you know, it looks fine. That was the other part, that documented stamp that I just stamped below the first photo came in a Studio Calico kit. And I always stamp twice. I put my stamp in ink, and I stamp it once, and then I stamp it again without re-inking it. I just like the way that that shadow looks. And then I wanted to add some gold to that top right-hand photo, so I put that die cut of the flower, but I don't like that green leaf exposed, so you'll see me cover that up a little later. And now I'm just adding some gold down to the bottom because, again, I'm trying to make a visual triangle. So I have the half of that tag on the top left-hand photo, some gold on that flower on the right-hand photo, and now I've just added some to the bottom. So I'm always looking to make sure things are cohesive and going together. So now I'm finally committing to putting all of that down, and I do end up covering a lot of the splattering that I did, so I don't know if I end up adding some more, but I know that I'm considering it at this point. So I've covered up that leaf with a cluster of flowers because I figured, hey, I added flowers already to the layout on the left-hand side, so why not? And later on you'll see me add a third little cluster of flowers as well. Not sure what I'm doing here. Oh, I decide to add one of those butterflies to this little cluster on the right-hand side because, again, I don't want that craft-colored heart to just look like an afterthought on the paper. I want it to be incorporated into the layout and into the title. And now I think I'm just considering what embellishment I want to use next. I'm always sort of moving around the page. And I decided that there was some blue missing. I knew that my title was going to have blue in it, and there was blue in that left-hand flower. So I add one of these freckled fawn blue camera paper clips. And then I add just a little bit of dimensional adhesive behind it because that camera is sort of weighty and I don't want it to weigh down the photo. Now I'm not sure where I went in my scrap room. Oh, okay, I went to go choose another stamp. And again, I chose one that came in a Studio Calico kit, and this one says Life is Beautiful, and I did the same type of stamping where I stamp once and then stamp again without re-inking my stamp. And it was bothering me that there was nothing below that little tag that says you are on my heart, excuse me. So I use this little chevron arrow stamp from Studio Calico, and I had to peel up the dimensional adhesive so that I could get it stamped there. And then these little metal kind of brad tops that you see are from Heidi Grace, and they're called metal accents. You can find them at Joann's, and this is from the Sun Showers collection. So I add those instead of adding enamel dots to this project, because sometimes I just get sick of using the same things. Now I've pulled out my alphabet, my little box where I keep all of my flat alphabets. I knew I didn't want to use anything dimensional like thickers, and my plan was, my title was going to be called The Many Faces of Ray, because it shows all her different emotions before going on stage for winter program. And I wanted the word faces to be in like an aqua color, and then I knew I wanted to use mini micro mono stickers for the rest of the title, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to use yellow or black, so you'll see me pull both of those out here. So I decide I need to ground my layout, my title. So I choose this washi tape that's from Recollections, and it's a nice lemony yellow color, and it has these clear flowers with kind of mint green leaves. And so obviously I don't go with the yellow micro monos because they would blend in, and I end up using the black ones. So I like how this sort of connects the title to that little cluster that I made on the right hand side. So as I lay out my title, I just want to tell you a little bit about these photos. Reagan had winter program at her preschool, and what they did was all of the 2-year-old class wore different animal-themed hats, and Reagan was a zebra, and they came out to the song What the Fox Says, and it was like a fashion show. So when they walked across the stage, they said, you know, Reagan is sporting a zebra hat, and her likes are playing with dolls and blowing bubbles, and she got to walk across the stage and wave. And then after they introduced each child, they then turned up the music and allowed them to dance. So it was very cute, and it was her first time ever experiencing something on stage, and she actually had a really good time doing it. So that's what these photos are about. Going back to the title, I just wrote the word faces, and I actually did it in an ombre effect. There were 2 different blue colors in those midway stickers. There was like an aqua and then more like a teal, so I gradually made the word faces go from light to dark, and now I'm just finishing the rest of the title. I always use my X-Acto knife to sort of manipulate those little micro mono stickers. That seems to help me. And now I'm just trying to figure out what the layout is missing, and I don't like that there's dead space to the right of, to the left of that middle photo, so I end up pulling another doily and rubbing it on. And then I also felt like there needed to be another flower, because I had flowers on the top left and right, and I felt like there needed to be another flower to make that visual triangle. So here's where I'm adding it, and I also add some more of those metal accents as well. So after I add this cluster, I realize that there's a lot of dead space to the right of the photo, but I don't want to over embellish. So what I decide to do is just doodle. I end up doodling on that main heart that's in the bottom right hand side, and then I doodle around the other hearts, and I just feel like without adding too much embellishing, it just adds a little something. So you'll see me do that right here. I think I'm off camera, sorry about that, guys, but you'll see me do these. So I just pick a few to accent and do the embellishing, and I think that I'm done after this, and there are some still shots at the end. So I hope you guys enjoyed this process video. I'm really enjoying making these, and I look forward to doing more in the future. Bye!